Flowers hanging in the vine. Love, there are flowers hanging in the vine. So I cannot see how my mind must be on holiday, torn from its loop, a broken valentine. I see the smoke from a revolver. When I'm bombed, I stretch like bubble gum and look too long, straight at the morning sun. Love, there are flowers along the avenue, all things perfectly in place. I build a shrine, I set my name, because you're fine, because you're a fine skin.
So far.
Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long seriously before you?
Why is that scattered so? Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking. You can't see what's in you. You're not alone for the lone, for the known. If we races for the generation, define a century. Come generate that largest though. I have the envelope with the soul for the proper time. I'm curious what I can see in the sight, stately enough of admirable. Maybe it was the way for the flood type. In your body for the you can find the twilight. We did it for the lighter, for the courage. You ride it, came here, and exceeded the past by the hand for the good voice, and I can call yourself properly enough for the louder in the mighty just me. More subtle for the witch, and you can find a woman for you can look in my face. Which you fuse me into the now and pour me in meaning into you. We understand that. Maybe I promise that for the documentary. Have you accepted what you can find not teach? A preaching you cannot accomplish. This is not for the pushing of the reading, but you cannot start the start of it. Personally, you're not fit. You can flow on that river. You can win the blood type. Gorgeous clouds, and you can find the sunset drenched with your splendor. I can find that standing up from the moon. You be the master of the point of the hill, but this will be baffling. Curious brain, that question, your answer getting upset. Suspend that everywhere. Turn float, there's no solution to loving. Thirsty eyes inside the house. Inside of that job site. Inside of that site from the inside the job. Loudly, musically, looking and thirsting. Dehydrated for the back of the speed, that back and that actress, and the play for the role of the great small. According who makes it, consider you for the pursuing. Whether or not the act can make it known for the unknown for the way for the living. That currently, in case you see that, you need that water, hold it still, I'm downcast, I have to take it through the diverging of what you find is smoke for the life of the shape in my head, for the only the one for the solid water, shipping it over the bay, for that, for the all, you can have that chamber, yellow for the henceforth to be humble, necessary enough for the continued the envelope of the soul of my body, against you for the body, and over the hunt for the line for the fly, try to define your shape and place you chose, the ample, sufficient enough for the 3D expansion, which you need enough for the purpose. Spiritual, nothing can be placed in the objects in which you can find their lasting. You sin to get on you in all things. You realize you celebrating with the faith from solids and fluids, and there's a color for the film, the location for the stability, and ideality for the durability, proof for comparison, and all that suggestion, determination of yourself, and I can be waited for the way that you not enough for the ministry to define that can only define the firm free sense. Saying, I can't find much more for the convince to be the one without yourself on me, and I can cast you aside for the disputed back, permanently because you cannot fathom with an I can love you. Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking. You can't. sit and look upon the sorrow of the world, for the looking upon oppression and shame. Hear the secret of the convulsive, sobbing yet for the young man, for the anguish. Themselves, you can be the remorse for the deeds for the done. I see in low life for the mother, for the misuse thereby their children, for the dying. And nigga, to find a desperate for the scene of the wife. Was misused for the this be the treacherous to the seducing of the one. Man, and this be the jealousy for the unrequited light, and unrequited. I attempted that to be hidden for the sights of the earth. I see the workings of the battle for the Bristolians, and this will be the tyranny for the martyr. And this will be the observer for the famine. I see for the observer, and casting knots and lots of dots to be killed for the preservation of their lives and the rest. And the observer, the slice and degraduating with the cast and that to the arrogant person. Upon that for the labor. Upon that, you can be the nigger brother like all of these, and the meaning for the agony for the that, the end of it is sitting upon yourself for the here for the silent.
I sit and look upon the sorrow of the world. I sit and look upon the sorrow. I sit and look upon the sorrow of the world. I sit and look upon the sorrow of the world, for the looking upon oppression and shame. Hear the secret of the convulsive, sobbing yet for the young man, for the anguish. Themselves, you can be the remorse for the deeds for the done.
I sit and look upon the sorrow of the world, for the looking upon oppression and shame. Hear the secret of the convulsive, sobbing yet for the young man, for the anguish. Themselves, you can be the remorse for the deeds for the done. I see in low life for the mother, for the misuse thereby their children, for the dying. And nigga, to find a desperate for the scene of the wife. Was misused for the this be the treacherous to the seducing of the one. Man, and this be the jealousy for the unrequited light, and unrequited. I attempted that to be hidden for the sights of the earth. I see the workings of the battle for the Bristolians, and this will be the tyranny for the martyr. And this will be the observer for the famine. I see for the observer, and casting knots and lots of dots to be killed for the preservation of their lives and the rest. And the observer, the slice and degraduating with the cast and that for the arrogant person. And upon that for the labor. Upon that, you can be the nigger brother like all of these, and the meaning for the agony for the that, the end of it is sitting upon yourself for the here for the silent. Under your breath, you reach this point of your standing in the ease of nature, master of all for the mistress of who. I apply that for the midst of the irrational things. Passive and receptive for the silence and define your occupation, the poverty for the notoriety, and I define a fable. Less important than a thought. Me for the be Manilio for the solitary, for these honor not subordinate. Equal to that for the best, and I am not. Toward that for the sea. Towards that for the coast. Self for the balance for the contingency. Confront that for the might storm, the hunger for the ridicule, for the accidents, the rebuff for that tree. Animals do too. It was you, it was me. As I lay my head with you, I'm laughing to repeat the confession within you, and to open the resume for the relentless, and you can find it full of dangers and full of death. Beyond that for the rest strife, you can find the confronting of where your security laws and this unsettle them. More resolution than this and be the denied of me. I can never began that, but what it was accepted. I never heeded, but never accepted for the caution to majorities. Ridicule for the threat of it. It was called the hell for the little bit of it. Nothing to me for the lure for the only the heavens, a little nothing to me. I can hide that urgent onward with me, and then find at least idea for the destination of weather, but not you told to be victorious and utterly going defeated. You could have been welfare. You could have been well for the reload that time for the face to face. You didn't want to have enough. You want to be disgraced with the clouds of the western. They're half an hour high. I also faded face to face, so you can look in the night for the costume. You are that for the shell across the shore for the you can hence that for the meat for the only the meditation you can might suppose that this and be impeccable. Sustenance for me for all things for the hour of the day to simply compact yourself for the scheme. Myself for the distance integrated for the yet the part of the scheme for the glorious, and you can find that beast in the smallest in sight. Hearing that for the jury for the rushing away swiftly and on for the swimming and far away for this. Between that for the dam for the certainty of others in their life, and the sea for the sight for the hurting and hearing, and others in the gate for the. You cross that shore to shore, watching you run for the flood, watching you hide in the tide. Hiding is for the large and small. They cross for the sun for the half, and hour high for the this to be the 100 for the how many times to define that balance for the sea and you. Sunset pouring on the flood tide for the falling in the back to sea for the ebb tide. This is the availability for the time and the place, and the distance is not for that for the generation. You win and when you can find that projection of yourself for the I am with you. I am how it is, and just how it feels, and how you look for this to be the river in the sky. For I felt that it was so many for the living in the crowd for the crowd, for just as many refreshes the gladness, and I can find the brightest flow. I can find you just as you know for the ends, and these fine and rail for this to treat the train for the swift that for the current that stood in the neighbor they were hurried. This to be the numberless, mastered it. You can be the thick of the pipe, and you can be the steamboat. You can be the thickness, and I can find a ship. There can be the time for the cross that river for this half and a half and half, and everything glistening in the light to divide, depart the brightest, and this is left the breast the strongest shadow. I saw that for the slow for the wheels, so circling for the gradually edging towards that dazzling and the bath and the beams, and this will be defined. Spoke to that for the light for the round that shape for the head for the you can sunlit water, and the vapor for the flute and his high to that for the ting of the violet. You can find that low for the pace to find that arriving. You can ship and have a relationship, but never near me. That for the only sloop, and you can find that still the cellar working never been riding in the spar of independent. And emotions and that for the pilots, and maybe the house for the left, that passive for the quick. It was the world for the wheel for the flag for the all nations, and the falling of the dam of the sunset for the crescent and glistening for the stretching over the dimmer and dimmer than enough for the great walls to destroy for the house of the dark. You shadow group, walls of your granite house, the big steam ugly, side barge belated, dim neighboring shore fires, found chimneys burning high enough for the glaring into the night. casting their flicker black and forth, and this is crashes maybe blasted enough for the light at the top of the houses and down the left of the street. You can find a projection of the moments that I tell you. I return for those induced to be the stately rapid, or over the river for the near me to define the same for the who's look at back me with the stream of consciousness and stop here for the day and the night. What's between us and the count of the scores? Who's whatever for the availability? I'm not for the place in the veil. You got ample here, but I don't know how, no mask, and that for that curiosity for the curious about the rep question that's in the stirring within me. Carouse the people you find that for the came to go upon excuses of the night for the laying inside the bed for the line. Too many for the struck upon that float. You can find no resolution with the solutions, there's only
Painful enough is pain.
Painful enough is pain. What you feel, you can't bear. That shouldn't have been the opening line, especially the word. Bear the key for this the center of the fact of the poem. I find the craft. Art is not that the divine matters to inspire. Care for the painstaking process of your construction. The poet picture yourself for the exercise in the craft, but probably that for the kind of interior of the light. The gift for which is the first and enables to that. In a raging moon, perhaps. Well Madison for the lovers. Fame for the profit and not for the glamour. But for lovers and the common wages of their almost, utmost and emotional secrets in the response to those of which you can find a suggestion. And with lover you can feel, for the lover you can human write. You can write that in bed for the grief for your arms and your fact and not pay their common wages and praises that he, your work. Creates and constructs images for you can have the experience and inspire that for the word, for the soul, and for the only the several senses, and you can derive. Derivative, and this is sense of this, and only, lonely for the humor, for the moody, the silence, and this would be the poet. Discontent for the predicant, this to continue for the facing the discontents, and this would be the poet for the sense of the reference. Refers to that for the deep, for the dole, for the mournful, for the dome. For the function, the enforce, and to take that for the only experience. The spin of that drift for the owner of the page, and this is which forfeit you can find that lover for the disclaiming of what you can find in the rage, and the ambition to perfect your acclaim, disregard for the proud man, apart for that for the raging moon, apart for that for the divorce himself for the experience of the love. Exclaim that. Tiring dead there at night. It was that craft. It was the aftermath. It was a lack of interior light. I was trying to guide her path, but she didn't ask for it. An analysis of this to be the poem where I practicing ideal readers and you can find yourself under depression. She never wanted it. Too much pressure. And I to not be the rare thing enough. You can have a collection of my heartbeats and dabble enough of the things and to give it glory. It's part of you for the meaning. For the binding and the branding and the branding of a cow. For you could be the only, the strongest milk. For you can have that for the generations that you can find a sign and still can find and still keep manipulation to his to bring. The pros for you to be a bird and a flower. Together for the wind blows harder than you can ever hover. The way, this lovely of a tree that I sit out and look. You would never pass that time. I can never sit out and stare. You didn't grant permission. Painful enough is pain. What you feel you can't bear. That shouldn't have been the opening line, especially the word. Bear the key for this the center of the fact.
Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long seriously before you were born? Why is that scattered so far in the night?
Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking. You can't see what's in you and not alone for the only the few races for the generation define a century. Come generate that largest, though I have the envelope for the soul for the proper time. I'm curious of what I can see in sight, stately enough of the admirable. Maybe it was the way for the flood type.
Looking for
oscillating your body for the only you can find the twilight. Belated for the lighter, for the courage is God and can be, and then exceeding the class by the hand for the with the voice, and I can call you so promptly enough for the louder and the mightiest name. More subtle for the witch, and you can find a woman for you can look in my face. Which you fuse me into the now and pour me in meaning into you. We understand that, maybe I promise that for the without the mentioning. Have you accepted what you can find not teach, preaching you cannot accomplish. This is not for the pushing of the reading, but you cannot start it, but personally you're not for you can flow on that river, you can with the blood type. Gorgeous clouds, and you can find the sunset drenched with your splendor, and I can find that standing up from this to be the mass for the owner of the hill, for this to be the baffling.
Why is that scattered so far in the night?
Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking. You can't see what's in you and not alone for the only the few races for the generation define a century. Come generate that largest, though I have the envelope for the soul for the proper time. I'm curious of what I can see in sight, stately enough of the admirable. Maybe it was the way for the flood type. Oscillating your body for the only you can find the twilight. Belated for the lighter, for the courage is God and can be, and then exceeding the class by the hand for the with the voice, and I can call you so promptly enough for the louder and the mightiest name. More subtle for the witch, and you can find a woman for you can look in my face. Which you fuse me into the now and pour me in meaning into you. We understand that, maybe I promise that for the without the mentioning. Have you accepted what you can find not teach, preaching you cannot accomplish. This is not for the pushing of the reading, but you cannot start it, but personally you're not for you can flow on that river, you can with the blood type. Gorgeous clouds, and you can find the sunset drenched with your splendor, and I can find that standing up from the to be the mass for the owner of the hill, for this to be the baffling. Curious brain, that question, your answer getting upset, suspend that everywhere. Eternal float, there is no solution to loving you. The thirsty eyes inside of that house, inside of that job site, inside of that site for the inside the job. Loudly and musically looking the thirst and dehydrated for the back, and this to be the back and that actress in the play for the O-roll for the role of the great and small. Quartering who makes it, consider you for the pursuing of whether or not for the back and the maiden, no for the unknown for the way for the looking up on you. You and the currently, you have that current. Make haste, receive that. You need that water. You faithfully hold it still. The kind downcasting of the eye for the take it from you, for the diverging of what you find the smoke, for the light, for the shape of my head, for the only the one, for the sunlit water. Ship that over the bay, for that, for the all. You can have that chimney, for the you can be the yellow, for the henceforth you can come with the indicator. Necessary enough for the continue the envelope of the soap of my body against your for the body, over the hunt for the divine for the dry, thriving to find your shape and place and show from the ample, sufficient enough for the be the expansion, which you need to know for the purpose, being spiritual enough to keep your place in the objects in which you can never find everlasting, descending upon you in all things. You realize you so by you for the faithful solids and fluids, and there's a color for the form, their location for the sublimity, and an ideality for the truly be proof of comparison and all that suggestions, determination of their self, and that can be waited for the way that you dumb enough for the ministry, if you can find that for the only to find your firm free the sense. Insaniac. I can't find much more affordable, but this would be the only without yourself from me. I can cast you aside for the disability plant you permanently with those that you cannot fathom, but I can love you for the perfection of you can find a farmer's and family's destiny, small enough that I can find a farmer furnish your soul. Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long, seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking, you can't see what's in you. Why not alone for scattered so far in the night, considered to be long, seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking, you can't see what's in you and not alone for the only the few races for the generation define a century. Come generate that largest though.
Why is that scattered so far in the night?
Why is that scattered so far?
Why is that scattered so far in the night? Why is that scattered so far in the night, considered to be long, seriously before you were born? Who knows that it's maybe I'm not as good as looking, you can't see what's in you and not alone for the only the few races for the generation define a century. Come generate that largest though. I have the envelope for the soul for the proper time. I'm curious of what I can see in sight, stately enough for the admirable. Maybe it was the way for the flood type. Oscillating your body for the only you can find the twilight. Belated for the lighter, for the courage is God and can be, and then exceeding the class by the hand for the with the voice, and I can call you so promptly enough for the louder and the mightiest name. More subtle for the witch, and you can find a woman for you can look in my face. Which you fuse me into the now and pour me in meaning into you. We understand that. Maybe I promise that for the without mentioning. Have you accepted what you can find not teach. Preaching you cannot accomplish. This is not for the pushing of the reading, for you cannot start it started. But personally and not for you can flow on that river. You can with the flood type. Gorgeous clouds, and you can find the sunset drenched with your splendor, and I can find that standing up for this to be the mass for the only the hill for this to be the baffling. Curious brain, that question to your answer getting upset, suspend that everywhere, eternal float. There is no solution to loving you. The thirsty eyes inside of that house.